actually, if you go back, John, by just choosing internet, and then you can choose which one you want to use, right? So very easy. It's just done in software. There's no need to switch around anything at all. Second scenario is you have two SIM cards. One is a work SIM card. The other one is a personal SIM card. We actually allow you to rename those buttons, so you can actually just say work and personal, right? Or put whatever you want in those buttons, so that you know which SIM card is which. When you call someone, what the MIUI 6 will do is it will call the person in the last phone number that that you call them. If you could go back, and you basically you're given a counter once you press to call. You're given a counter. Just next slide, John. You're given a counter, then if you don't press anything, it will just automatically call that person through the same SIM card that you had called them previously. Next scenario is if you're traveling frequently between two countries, two states, whatever it might be. Whenever there's a roaming barrier between the two of them, again, you might want to just quickly switch. Again, all in software, right? So many different use cases for this true dual 4G or dual 3G feature of the device. Okay, we also support FDD LTE with all the appropriate bands, and so this is kind of a future-proof device, if you will. John, I'm going to try to see if I can go back to switching slides myself, because it's just very painful to keep raising my arm. So can you just remove the USB thing and then plug it back in? Okay, I think we're finally back. Okay, so let's talk about the display. The display is my second favorite feature of Redmi 2, and it is so for a few reasons. So first of all, it's a dual-sourced Sharp or AOF 4.7 inch IPS display. And the 4.7 inch is actually a really important thing. In a world of big phones, what happened to the little guys, right? So we were tempted to move to a 5-inch screen size, but we actually decided to stay at 4.7. We talked to a lot of people, and actually Redmi 1S, one of the reasons why people loved it so much was because it was not a big phone, right? So Redmi 2 is also not a big phone. It's a phone that's just the right size. So we stayed with 4.7 inch. The most important thing, and this is a huge upgrade from Redmi 1S, and it's also a huge upgrade from any other phone that you'll see in this price range, is that we're using a fully laminated display. That means there's no gap between the glass and the touch panel with the LCD right behind it. On Redmi 1S and many, if not all of the other devices in this category, if you look at the phone from the side, right, and you look very carefully and very closely, you can actually see that there's a physical distance between the top of the screen, the place where your finger touches the top of the glass, and where the pixels seem to be actually getting generated. With a fully laminated display, you basically bring the whole thing up because everything is now one single part, and that makes a huge difference. It improves visibility, it reduces glare, and it gives you better angles as well. Right, so it's an overall much superior experience, and it shows. The other thing that a fully laminated display gives you is because there's no gap, again, between the glass and the assembly below it. If you press the device, you don't hear like any sort of mechanical move. On Redmi 1S, some people who are really observant would say, if I press the display and I really listen closely, I can hear it go, like, because there's an actual movement in that gap that exists in between the glass and the touch panel. That no longer happens in a laminated display. So the result is a more solid device, and when you press it, even you really use force, you're not going to sort of perceive any movement because there is no movement. Yeah, so that's a fully laminated display. It's an IPS display as well, so that'll give you 178 degrees of viewing angle. Basically, you can see it from any angle as long as you can actually see the display. It's a 720p display, so 312 pixels per inch. At this 4.7 inch, you basically don't need a higher resolution display because you wouldn't be able to see more resolution than this, right? 312 ppi. People say that that's roughly that's slightly above the point at which you can no longer distinguish resolution if you go higher. Really important, and this is something that no one ever talks about, 70% color gamut. Right? So that means a much more accurate representation of a wider range of colors. It means that the more saturated ends of the color spectrum can be seen in a more saturated way. Meaning you can display a redder red, or a bluer blue, or a greener green, plus some of the high saturated versions of those, right? Like a deep yellow, for example. You'll see a deeper yellow on a display that has a higher color gamut. So this will overall just give you a much better experience, a much more sort of stunning visual experience with this product. And 1,000:1 contrast ratio, which again is something that you don't hear people brag about, because typically the displays that are used in devices sort of in this mid-range are just not that good. So we love bragging about it because we choose the best possible components. So exactly in the same way as Redmi 1S, Redmi 2 is protected with AGC Dragon Trail glass, Asahi Glass Corporation, which is a Japanese supplier, a very, very reputable company. We stuck with AGC Dragon Trail because it worked really well for Redmi 1S. And then of course what I like to do is I do the scratch test. I would encourage you to do the same thing as well. You just cannot get this guy to scratch. I mean, you're gonna have a very hard time. You can try it as hard as you want. Don't like step on it because you might actually perforate the whole thing, but you're not going to be able to get it to scratch, right? And this is a very, very important thing for Redmi 2. You're not going to be able to get it to scratch at all. So you don't need a screen protector on this device. It's just not going to. You're just not going to be able to do anything to it. It's good. Approved. All right. And if you see what appears to be a smudge, you know, just buff it. Done. All right. Camera. Camera is my next favorite feature of Redmi 2. And if you give me just a second, I'm just going to catch up on my other guy here. The camera was actually one of the most talked about features of Redmi 1S. It's something that people completely raved about all the time. You know, this one says unbeatable camera features in the price range, super fast camera, and this happened all over the world. I mean, people talked about the Redmi 1S camera being as good as cameras that you would ship on devices that sold for 3 times the price sometimes, right? So we've obviously taken that tradition forward, and we are launching our best camera yet on a product like this. So the specs of the camera are actually quite similar, but we've done a lot of work in optimizing as well as improving even further the software that goes along with that. So it's an 8 megapixel BSI camera from OmniVision, f2.2, which is a decently large aperture. You will not see a lot of f2.2 sensors, CMOS sensors again, in this category, with a 5-element lens for the rear camera. You guys know me very well. You know how much I love HDR. I always talk about HDR. We have, without a doubt, the best HDR algorithm in the industry, and I've tested that, others have tested that. We've continued to improve it. So the HDR photos that you see, whether they're studio photos like these, or street photos, this is still a studio photo, or street photos like these, they're incredibly beautiful, right? So it's not only HDR, but there's gamma adjustments applied and a few other saturation tweaks that we make as part of our HDR algorithm to give you incredibly good looking photos. Look at this. Right, this is a photo taken by Siling, one of Bobby's colleagues in the social media team, of her cat at home. Right, so beautiful, beautiful photos. These photos are all, by the way, in the media kit. So if you want to borrow them, you have unrestricted rights to use them, of course. 2 megapixel BSI front camera that is capable of 720p video. This is an upgrade from the camera that we used to ship in Redmi 1S, which was 1.6 megapixel front camera. We've done a lot of adjustments to a feature that is now called Beautify. This feature did not have a name the last time we were here. It's now called Beautify. And what Beautify does is it applies 36 filters automatically to a photo to a selfie photo, up to 3 people at a time, that actually make you look even more beautiful, even more handsome. And you know, it really shows. And the cool thing is that, this is Manu from our Indian team. And the cool thing is that it actually is turned on by default. And because it's turned on by default, everyone just thinks that all of the Xiaomi front cameras, selfie cameras, are like extraordinarily unique and magical in some way. I gave my sister Mi 4 as a Christmas gift last year. You know, my sister is a very busy doctor. She's not one to like send selfies or anything like that. And all of a sudden, she started sending selfies in the family chat, right? And she's saying, you know, oh my God, like this camera is so good. Well, Beautify was turned on. I mean, my sister's beautiful, but she was made even prettier, even to her own surprise, because of Beautify. So it's a pretty sophisticated algorithm that applies 36 filters. It varies based on, it tweaks the parameters based on age and gender. So what you see when you turn on the front camera is actually automatically tries to guess your age and your gender. Tends to get them right. The gender is right like 99% of the time. The age is sometimes not exactly right. I tell our software engineers, you know, if I were to open a hotel, in the bathroom of every room, I would put a weight scale and I would make sure that it was 2 kilos less, right? So I don't know if that's what they did to our algorithm, but it tends to make people feel younger. Let's talk about the battery. So the battery in Redmi 2 is a 10% higher battery capacity, 2200 milliamp hours than Redmi 1S. It supports Quick Charge 1.0. This is supported by the Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset. And it charges at a rate that is 20% faster than Redmi 1S. So basically, it will charge faster. Dual noise cancelling microphones. This is a really important one. USB on the go. This is another thing that you're not going to find easily in most devices, as a matter of fact. So you can connect, you know, anything from our super cute USB disk drive or flash drive to other things like game pads, you know, mouse, keyboards, and so on and so forth. So USB on the go support. And it ships with MIUI 6. I'm actually very proud to launch our first device in Indonesia that's actually shipping with MIUI 6, which is our best foot forward in terms of software. Now, if you guys want, I can spend about 15 minutes telling you about MIUI 6, maybe 20 minutes. Should I talk about MIUI 6? Yeah? Okay. If you say so. Let's talk about MIUI 6. I'm going to start with a quick video. If you had to use one word to describe this video, what would that be? Colorful. Yeah, I like that. I like happy. I think MIUI 6 is very happy. And that's actually by design. We made it very colorful. We put a lot of effort into the animations because we just wanted it to be a very happy UI. And I think that's what we've achieved. And I want to show you some of this. So MIUI 6 is a living, or MIUI in general is a living operating system. We call it a live operating system. We update it every week if you're on the beta track. And we've already crossed 100 million users, active users around the world. So MIUI 6 takes this to a whole new level. There you go. So MIUI V5 is widely known by our fans as